To all my subscribers, this video is a break in regular transmission to send a message to those less fortunate. Normal videos will resume shortly. Great! Now that I have your attention, your government is currently destroying your life, future and prosperity while you are focusing on sex and Pokemon. I'm sure you can use Pokemon to score some really hot chicks, and it's a great way to start off communication with people that you can just bump into randomly on the street. However, as you will find out, this video is going to take a slightly different route, but will hopefully help you just as equally. But what does this mean? For starters, Firms estimates Pokemon Go has achieved 7.5 million downloads, creating $1.6 million daily revenue in the US alone. Now I'm one of those guys who drives down the road, walks down the street, and is amazed by the amount of people that you walk past, glued to their LCD screens, oblivious to what is actually happening in the world around them. Now I'm concerned to see numbers like this come out with Pokemon Go usage. The average user, based upon United States stats as of the 8th of July, are spending an average of 43 minutes, 23 seconds on Pokemon Go each day. This is more than WhatsApp, Instagram, Snapchat, and Messenger. You can see this global map how this Pokemon craze is spreading. Some people may look at this as a successful launch, and other people will view it as a pandemic event, sweeping the nations and consuming people's minds, people's interactions, and people's ability to disconnect from the alternate reality that they find themselves pushed into, whether it be from market advertisement, peer pressure, social media groups, or just bone idleness. To me, this map looks a lot like the Zika virus, and a lot of people's brains will be going the same way, which is equally as devastating. Society has become so fake that the truth actually bothers people, and it actually bothers me. I thought it was bad enough going out that people were glued to their phones, doing the latest tweet, taking a photo of the latest meal at the restaurant, tables of people, all on their phones. People are losing touch of reality, and this augmented video game is only going to increase that. However, now it's not going to be a case of sitting down. Here's the sort of thing I'm talking about. Whether it be your local bus stop, train station, it's going to be mindless zombies walking the streets trying to find our Pikachu. One of Albert Einstein's quotes, "I fear the day that technology will surpass our human interaction. The world will have a great generation of idiots." Keep on playing Pokemon. Everything's okay. Just keep on shopping, just watching TV, working that 9 to 5, voting on your puppets. And thank you for believing in the great illusion. With thanks, the management. In today's society, in today's mainstream news, you are fed countless lies on a daily basis. There's a great quote from Adolf Hitler. Quote, "If you tell a lie long enough, loud enough, and often enough, the people will believe it." It's one of the greatest ways mainstream media can brainwash you, by just spilling lie after lie. And if you only have one feed of information, how can you find that one truth in it all? DDoS attacks is the same as your Snorlax level 30 Pokemon being under attack. What do you do? Now I'm referring to your Pokemon accounts, to your entire Google account via the iOS download. I'm sure you're aware, every part of your information is now legally allowed to be sold on to third parties. And this would be a great quote from the company, referring to your data. Gotta catch 'em all. Once you awaken, it's hard to go back to being a sheep. Remember this quote. To conquer a nation, first disarm its citizens. Again, Adolf Hitler. Now what's one way of disarming your citizens? I'm sure a lot of you are thinking, well, you take the guns. The guns have already been taken in many countries, so the fight is now on the mind. For several decades, brainwashing has been happening from a very early age, and I'll bet you're not even aware of it. That's why I'm making this video, to try and help people realize that life is not quite as it seems. Currently, there's a lot of people waking up. However, in the scale of things, this is how they feel. They feel like the black sheep trying to make their way through the herd that are falling to their death. Herd mentality. Don't be a sheep. pay special attention to the symbol in the middle of the sheep, triangle with an eye. This is what happens to sheep. Free your mind, and the rest will follow. Be the change that you wish to see. Don't wish for the change. You have to physically get off your ass and make things happen. Nothing is going to be given to you. If you want things to be given to you, then continue being a sheep. Water and food is over there in the corner. A while ago, many agencies were found to be spying upon its people, supposedly for anti-terrorism reasons. They didn't stop spying on you. Remind me again why we are being spied on and why these agencies exist. They're here to protect you, but they're doing anything but. They're spreading fear, they're removing your civil rights, and if you had physical chains bound upon your ankles and arms, you would feel them becoming tighter. But in today's society, it's a mental chain, and the mental chains are becoming tighter, and you have to be aware to see this happening. An army of sheep led by a lion is better than an army of lions led by a sheep. Alexander the Great. The word government is derived from the Latin verb govano, governare, meaning to control, and the Latin noun mens mentis, meaning mind, to control the mind. The word government means to control the mind. The more you research this information, the crazier you sound to ignorant people, and they will spite you with words of conspiracy, brainwashed upon people to immediately shut down any cognitive thinking should certain phrases or theories be spoken about. It's kind of like a safety mechanism indoctrinated into you from the schooling system. Now, Facebook is another way of breaking up relationships and making people feel miserable. There was once a time you would meet up with your friends and family on a regular basis, and you would spend quality, physical, interacting time with them. Now, with the release of this Facebook, people don't have to do this. They can just send a simple message and they feel they've caught up with that family member or that friend. Yet you are distancing yourself further from what is actually really important in life. And believe it or not, it's spending time with your loved ones. However, this Facebook has evolved into vast numbers of contacts and friends that you divide your time spitting pointless messages and displaying how fantastic your life is, what you're eating, where you're going on holiday, how fantastic everything is, which has the adverse effect on anybody that is viewing that profile, thinking, well, how can they do that? I can't afford to do this. Oh, they're having a great time, my life's so miserable, which has a negative impact on society. Sure, Facebook can expand business contacts, which is a positive, but there's far more negatives, not even mentioning the data collection being sold to third parties and used to profile every single individual for the purposes of marketeering and sales. You're effectively being branded with a barcode, kind of like these poor guys down here. So it's up to you. Follow the arsehole in front of you. Republican or Democratic, Labour or Conservative, it makes no difference. Wake up. Sheep which wander can munch their way into serious danger. Sheep that become independent soon stray away from the safety of the shepherd and the flock. They are actually drawn away by their appetite as they go from one clump of grass to another. By wandering, they expose themselves to a multitude of dangers. If a sheep's thick coat of wool becomes caught in an underbrush of thickets, the sheep may remain captive until it dies. A lone sheep is also an open invitation to its many predators. Without the protection of the shepherd, it may face attack and death from a wolf, lion, or bear. People have become divided by society. People have become alienated by society. Put that in context of who the predators are and try to use your cognitive thinking to find out what it is that I mean behind this. A wolf may say, "Fear not, little sheep, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine, sheep." Many people have been separated from family, friends, and communities. And this is not a religious broadcasting, so do not switch it off thinking so. This is about showing you how powers will divide nations, counties, provinces, race, blacks, whites, for the simple fact it's much easier to divide than conquer. And this has happened for millennium. If you separate and split communities, that community becomes weaker and becomes easier to control. One sheep on his own is easier to control than a herd. Now, if you're looking at this video and you've got this far, and you're thinking, yeah, this guy sounds paranoid, there'll be lots out there who are agreeing. I can call you uninformed. Laugh at me because I'm different. They may laugh at you because you're different. I laugh at them. We can laugh at them because they're all the same. This is a perfect image of what is happening to humanity and the very wealthy people that own our lands and make our laws. This is how they treat and view the citizens. Via control, you can push them towards the gate that you've left open. This is very basic terms of explaining. It gets a lot more complicated to take it out of the sheep herding process and into modern day society. This is how you're viewed by the powerful elites that rule this world. You need to wake up. Freedom from tyranny. What have I told you? That both political parties work for the same corporations, referring to that great iconic film, The Matrix. I won't delve into that just now. What have I told you? That no matter how much information you share with your friends about our tyrannical government and our liberties slowly disappearing, 95% just won't give a damn until it's too late, and then they'll wonder, how did they allow this to happen? At this point, I was going to insert a few other images which I've decided to remove, simply for the fact that there may be some younger guys watching this, but it was to do with the association of World War II and how the governments treated each other during those times. And you may think, well, today's a modern society. Societies have been evolving for millennia. The game never changes, it's just the players do. War will always be war, and in their eyes, it is a necessity. So if you think war in today's society can't happen, won't happen, in your life, in your country, you need to learn to be open-minded that it can, and that you, listening to this, can be called up to fight for somebody else's war and possibly lose your life over it. That's the situation where we're going. The all-seeing eye planted on every American dollar, rooted back to Egyptian times, and perhaps further. The dynasties that rule today are from the same bloodlines that ruled back then. You think that's conspiracy? You can deny what you don't know as some conspiracy theory, but you cannot sanely say that you saw skies like this playing outside as a kid, can you? The constant haze that we have over our cities and towns and rural areas has been directly linked to high altitude aircrafts dropping aerosols high up in the atmosphere, placing a layer around the planet. Inside some of these, you need to research what is inside the chemical base and what it is doing, not only to the human organisms, me and you, on this planet, but also the nature, the food chain, and the very thing that produces air in our planet, trees. I'm just going to lightly touch on this one. Media create public opinion. From the left-hand side, you have the terrorist from Afghanistan holding a rocket launcher, the rebels from Syria holding a rocket launcher, the terrorists from Iraq holding a rocket launcher, the freedom fighters from Libya holding a rocket launcher. All are identical. What's the difference? It's just what the media says. One might be a freedom fighter, one might be a terrorist. How would you feel if your country is being bombed day after day, your family being killed? Would you just stand by and let that happen? Again, this goes much deeper, because many terrorist organisations have been linked to Western funding and much aid being delivered to them via US and British forces. Time doesn't actually exist. Time doesn't exist. Clocks exist. Time is just an agreement upon construct. We have taken distance, one rotation of the Earth, and one orbit of the Sun, divided it up into segments, then given those segments labels. While it has its uses, We have still been programmed to live our lives by this construct as if it were real. We have confused our shared construct with something that is tangible and thus have become a slave to it. Throughout the day, you're constantly looking at your watch to make sure you're on time for a certain meeting or a certain place or a certain appointment or a certain train or a bus or a phone call. You live your life by your time, whereas you should just be living your life. So this is a great image, displaying the agenda of one of the world orders, be it the West, be it the East. It's irrelevant, because the agenda is for the purposes of greed and power, which if they were equally shared upon the citizens of a nation, then that nation would have a keen interest. However, that's not how it works. So when you hear in the medias of this superpower out of Russia causing hostilities, threatening behavior, you can class this under the propaganda, because to that majority of people, we're not concerned with war. We're not concerned with bombing other nations and threatening behaviors and so-called threatening behaviors. Most people just defend themselves. It's the West that go out of their way, setting up bases all over the world and threatening anybody that disagrees with their Western politics. The people would much rather deal with the situations inside their countries, like migrant crisis, financial crisis, and working crisis. Unfortunately, I am the 2% that has a clue about what's happening and why. And that is why I'm making this video, so our numbers can increase and so we can make a change. If you would just open your eyes, it's all incredibly obvious, and hopefully certain things are becoming questionable to you. You have to look at the totally absurd headlines and lies that get told to you. You have to challenge what is being told to you, and you have to research what is being told to you, because there's always two sides to a coin, yet too many listen to one. You've all heard of the number 666. Now I'm just going to take you on a slight sidetrack to show you something else. The thing that many of us use every single day and even click on actually represents this satanic number. Now again, if you're thinking, yeah, I can kind of see that 666 in there, but that's not what the icon means. The icon is just colours with a circle and it's a symbol. Correct, it is a symbol, and believe it or not, that is what it represents. And I'll go on to show you a few more to prove this. Here's CERN, the European Organisation for Nuclear Research. I'm sure some of you will have heard of CERN, others will not. I'll give you a brief description shortly of what it is. Again, 666, plain as day. Now outside the CERN headquarters in Geneva, they have a statue, which if you're Hindu you will understand, but it's the goddess Shiva. Now CERN, the European Organisation for Nuclear Research, was founded in 1954, but CERN only became truly world famous after the Large Hadron Collider, LHC, identified the elusive Higgs boson in 2013. With a larger profile came increasing public concern about the work CERN does, especially from conservative Christians who believe the scientists at CERN are, quote, playing God, end quote. CERN has tried to allay these concerns, delivering the news that, among other misconceptions, the LHC is sadly not trying to, quote, open a door to another dimension, end quote. Now funny it should say sadly, in a jokey manner. Suspicions persist, however. CERN recently found it prudent to answer a question about why it has a statue of the Hindu god Shiva, a complex deity sometimes characterized as the Destroyer, on the premises. CERN answers that the Shiva statue was a gift from the Indian government. And that's right, Shiva is the goddess of destroying everything. What a fantastic thing to have outside the largest hadron collider in the world. Something that fires particles so fast at each other it destroys them on impact, releasing effectively the DNA breakdown of those two components, and even opening up new subatomic particles in the process. How CERN planned to use the Large Hadron Collider to open portals to other dimensions and possibly already have. This is another article I clipped. So they've double backed on their previous statement, saying sadly, we don't plan to use it. Well now, they're opening portals to other dimensions. Now this chamber, which is several miles long, I forget the exact number, is in a huge circle radius, you can look it up, in a figure of 8, where one gets launched from one side, the other gets launched, and they build up before they create the impact in the dissecting point. Now recent news that came out perhaps a year ago, where they were shooting, I believe it was lead particles, at each other, resulted in an anomaly inside the chamber, which was undescribable. So they emptied the chambers. However, this anomaly remained trapped inside the system, and they believe it was dark matter, which was potentially responsible for opening up some form of portal. Now, this is not something that I spend a lot of time researching. I just read the odd update. But CERN is definitely something very, very concerning, which lots of people have made a pun on. CERN want to use the Hadron Collider to find out the fundamentals of our universe and how it was created. They want to recreate the Big Bang and find out what matter existed at the creation of our universe. But this is not the only major role for the machine. With the Large Hadron Collider, CERN are expecting to find other dimensions and open portals to these dimensions. If you have the image of Stargate in your head right now, you are spot on. There are some very interesting theories connected to CERN, and I will warn you that the following theories may offend you. I am simply sharing this information with you for you to make up your own mind. One theory is that this is to connect between CERN and Saturn. You may have heard of Jacob's ladder, which is described in the book of Genesis. The ladder is said to be a ladder between heaven and earth that allow angels to come down to earth. One of CERN's goals is to recreate Jacob's ladder and reopen a portal that is said to have existed between Earth, Mars, Venus and Saturn while the planets were in alignment many years ago. There are even rumours that back in 2012, CERN successfully opened a portal and witnessed giants, Nephilim. This is said to be one of the reasons they shut down the Large Hadron Collider in order to make it more powerful and fix the magnets after they broke opening the portal. I'll just make a side note. When they power these machines up, it requires huge amounts of energy, which then get dumped at the end of the cycle, like in a crash test barrier. That energy has to be released into something. Now, a lot of earthquakes and tremors around the world have been linked to CERN's dumps. Just want you to keep that in mind. I'll carry on. CERN have scheduled to attempt to open the portal in September this year, although after a magnet shutdown that was experienced in March this year, this timeline may be delayed. Whether they are successful or not is anyone's guess at this point. There are questions whether the machine is powerful enough to do this type of portal opening yet. Most of this information, whether fact or fiction, has been kept from the public eye for obvious reasons. But whether Jacob's ladder really existed, CERN are pretty sure that other dimensions do, and have made it their goal to ensure that they open the portals up to them. This photo is from above CERN, I believe a couple of weeks ago. An eerie photo fuels internet theory that CERN is opening portals. And there are many photos out there of weird skies during CERN's operations. So much so that I believe one opened in international waters somewhere, to which immediately that area of the ocean was cornered off and many military ships were sent to the area from all the nations that were close to corner that area and investigate what was going on. Was it connected to CERN? I don't know. Now, regarding to Jacob's Ladder, I've seen the first season of Dominion, which is a show on SciFX. And something that I want to tell you about movies and TV shows is there's a lot of subliminal hidden messages, not to mention that a lot of these plots are not just make-believe fairy tales. They generate from events that have happened in the past or events that are going to happen in the future. Now, how can you predict the future? Well, you're not predicting. These people know what's going to go on. Certain powers or entities of this earth know what's going on and are driving it to this situation. Now, a quick outline of what Dominion's all about. Obviously, it's about angels, good angels and bad angels that come to Earth. Another depiction in a slightly different light of evil would be the Ice King in Game of Thrones. Ironically enough, he has horns and a vicious looking face. How mnemonic is used to program and control your mind? And this is what I'm talking about, the subliminal. Back from about the 1950s, subliminal messaging was being implemented throughout society. It was actually developed by something called MK Ultra, and all you have to do is punch that in, and that will take you down another rabbit hole and educate you to the severe state and poor people that went through that process to refine it to then unleash it into people in today's society. The adjective definition of the word mnemonic is, quote, assisting or intended to assist the memory, end quote. As for the noun definition, mnemonic means, quote, something intended to assist the memory as a verse or formula, end quote. And the Greek meaning, quote, of or pertaining to memory, end quote. So it's all about memory. Based on these definitions, mnemonic is something that affects the memory. Mnemonic is used in many different media, such as video games, TV commercials, cell phone apps, computers, and movies. The techniques used mnemonic can be used for good or evil purposes. Unfortunately, most today are used to program our minds in negative ways and control how we think to a large degree. One of the most popular media used is television, TV. Have you ever wondered why TV shows are sometimes called TV programs? They're called TV programs because they are using them to program your mind with mnemonics and subliminal messages. They did not call them TV programs for no reason. It is right in your face and hidden in plain sight, and that's how these guys operate. They tell you to your face what they're doing. It's up to your cognitive thinking to see it and react to it, not just be brainwashed and led down a path that they want you to walk. This is why advertisers and others who want to program your mind with their wishes use sigils on television, in the movies, on cell phones, on the internet, in video games, on billboards, in magazines, everywhere. The neural pathways of the brain are constantly reforming themselves based on the information that comes in. The pathways are set according to what your daily habits are. When you change your daily habits, or you change your mind, you begin to form new pathways. You can actually train your brain this way. However, if you are allowing someone else to train your brain, you are giving them the ability to reform and reshape the neural pathways of your brain for you. You begin to accept new perceptions as your own, not realizing it was outside source that programmed your thoughts. This is how advertisement works and how they get you to buy things, how they get you to eat things, and how they get you to believe things. What you believe to be true, is it true? Or do you just believe that it is true because you were taught that it was true and never looked any further? Do not be confused. I can be one of the sheep. I choose to reserve those gentle moments for my children when Mama watches the door. I live my life as sheepdog. I will protect my family and I am prepared for war. I will be a wolf. If you threaten my country, my rights, or my brothers, I will bring destruction to your door. These are the mentalities of the classes of people. We are being controlled by wolves that are leading you to a path of destruction. You don't believe that? Look at the markets. Look at the threats from politicians regarding Brexit votes. Markets will come down. Wars will happen. It's fear-mongering and trying to herd the sheep in a certain direction. I'm not here to be liked. The sheep is still asleep. So I'm here to wake them up. Government censorship, protecting you from reality. You will have seen this image previously of a carrot in front of a donkey. You're no different to that donkey, working for that carrot. All the while, you're being controlled by what's above you. You're a slave to that paper. Realize it. Fix it. When did these guys become these guys? Open your eyes. Look within. Are you satisfied with the life that you're living? Many people try to stand up and do the right thing, but what happens to them when their voice gets heard and they become successful? You can ask President Kennedy. You can ask Bob Marley. Here's another sign of subliminal marketing. The largest corporation by market cap is Apple, around about the $615 billion mark. Now, what an interesting symbol for a computer company, which doesn't actually make their own computers. It's more of an ideas company and export Eastern countries to manufacture them for you. But ignore that. But what does the apple represent? In this image, it's showing you, again from ancient times, Adam and Eve, when they took a bite of the forbidden fruit. There's more to it than meets the eye on this one. But how many people have actually looked at it that way? a logo for granted and have no understanding of the meaning behind it. You see the celebrities of today throwing hand gestures and symbols out to the masses via their hugely watched and celebrated music. When have ever hand signals like this represented anything to do with the music industry? And the more you pick up on these hand signals, you need to ask yourself, well, what does that mean? I want you to look at this film, Angelina Jolie. It's a Disney film, Maleficent. It's a good film, I watched it. But Disney films are also not quite as they seem. You might just think, it's just a film. Things are not just films. Take a look at this image and then this next image. And you'll know this already. This is Satan. So when you take your kids to see some of these movies, you're presenting Satan and evil spirits to their young minds. And believe it or not, they're being indoctrinated via these family day outs. Walt Disney actually has in his iconic signature that number again of 666. And then here's a Simpsons episode. You can look up the date, but it was before the event. And this is part of the subliminal conditioning of information being told prior to any event that happens. You just have to have the eyes to see, or the help from people to point it out. But everything is pre-told to you prior to things happening in reality. Now I'm sure you're thinking, this is just coincidence. How about now? Who would have thought back in the year 2000 Donald Trump would be running for president? And don't you find it fascinating, if you look at the detail in this picture, how it is identical, minus the signs, of a Simpson episode 15 years ago. Satanic hand gestures. Are these a normal thing to do in public photos? I don't know why people don't wave. Why is everyone got to be throwing out symbology? This film, again, Disney, Walt Disney, Beauty and the Beast. In 1991 this came out. And in one of the scenes, you have the devil with horn symbol being shown to your children. Michael Bublé, horns. This is not a rock and roll symbol. This is a satanic symbol. And this is the all-seeing eye symbol. You have Pope Francis, believe it or not, is one of the most satanic people in the world. And I'd imagine with extreme close links to whatever is at the top of that Illuminati tree. You have a lot of people wondering about this Donald Trump guy, if he's connected any single way. Now I'd imagine Donald Trump is quite a smart guy, and he wouldn't be throwing out rock and roll symbols. People generally have to pledge their self to these secret societies, and as part of that society, you have to demonstrate your loyalty. And if you're a person of fame, you have to demonstrate that in public. And here's Will Smith doing it in The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. George Bush next to the Queen. Check his left hand. It's better to walk alone than with a crowd going in the wrong direction.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program, for from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. For I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed. I not only could not stifle controversy among your readers, I welcome it. This administration intends to be candid about its errors. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. We intend to accept full responsibility for our errors, and we expect you to point them out when we miss them. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. And that is why our press was protected by the First Amendment, the only business in America specifically protected by the Constitution, not primarily to amuse and entertain, not to emphasize the trivial and the sentimental, not to simply give the public what it wants, but to inform, to arouse, to reflect, to state our dangers and our opportunities, to indicate our crises and our choices, to lead, mold, educate, and sometimes even anger public opinion. This means greater coverage and analysis of international news, for it is no longer far away and foreign, but close at hand and local. It means greater attention to improved understanding of the news, as well as improved transmission. And it means, finally, that government at all levels must meet its obligation to provide you with the fullest possible information outside the narrowest limits of national security. And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
And this is the effect of the celebrities of today indoctrinating the fans that are asleep into symbology linked with Satanism. Do these people even know that they're putting up hand signals, worshipping the devil, thinking they're having a fantastic time? Yeah, rock and roll means nothing to do with rock and roll. These guys are being led down a path that they have no idea they're walking. And on it goes. This is just scratching the surface. You have been warned, guys. I hope this has just helped one person wake up and to start questioning. Please do share this. Do you control your mind? Or does somebody else control it for you?